Hey everybody, this is Cody and I'm going to be demonstrating how to progress through the Deadbug exercises using the 4 stages of rehabilitation that we covered in the module for this week. We're going to talk about the acute phase, the subacute phase, the advanced strengthening phase, and the return to activity phases. And this is assuming that you have a hip impingement as the thing that's kind of stopping that progression and why you're doing this rehabilitation in the first place. All right, so enjoy. I also want to explain what a hip impingement is before we get into things. And it's basically a kind of pain, sometimes a stiffness, a lack of mobility that's happening between your femur and the hip socket. So some people might experience that as like a sharp pain or a lack of range of motion. Basically that there's some sort of issue in stiffness and or pain and discomfort that's happening kind of in between where the femur and the hip meet. So that's what we're trying to work on here. All right, so we're going to start with phase 1, the acute phase, also known as the initial healing phase. And in this phase, we're really trying to reduce the pain, reduce the inflammation. We're trying to make sure that we don't make anything worse. So we want to make sure that all of the areas that are damaged or inflamed are protected. We want to be really gentle. We want to make sure that whoever's doing this practice is really minimizing the amount of strain that's on their body, and we just want to get things reactivated and firing in the proper way without adding any stress or tension. All right, so for phase 1, we're going to be lying flat on our mat, and our feet are going to be down on the mat. And the big thing that we're going to be focusing on here is a posterior pelvic tilt, and what that means is we're going to be activating our core and removing that arch in our lower back by engaging those core muscles. And we're going to feel what it's like to have this core fully engaged and supporting us. So we're going to hold this for about 5 seconds, and then we're going to rest and relax for about 10, and we're going to do about 6 to 8 sets of those. Again, activating, engaging that core, having the posterior pelvic tilt, and then relaxing. And that's going to help us activate all these core muscles without adding any additional stress to where the impingement might be. All right, so long as there's no pain when we're doing that movement and your core is fully engaged without compensating, without really lowering that and arching the lower back, and we're pain-free, then we can move on to phase 2. All right, so for phase 2, the subacute phase, we're gonna take it one step further, and hopefully now we've learned to really activate these core muscles. We have our pelvic tilt happening and making sure that this is all stabilized from our first phase, and we've built up a little bit of stamina so we can actually hold this posture. And so in phase 2, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and lift our legs off after keeping that core activated. And first, we're just gonna practice being here. Again, kind of same set that we did before. We're gonna hold this for 5 seconds and then rest for 10. We're gonna do hopefully up to 8 reps of that. And maybe you can even do multiple sets if you've built up enough strength and endurance and there's no pain and no pinching. And once we've gotten that down, we're gonna add one more slight movement. Again, making sure that we've got this engagement here in our core. And we're gonna exhale on the way down. We're gonna lower one leg at a time and tap our heel to the ground. And back up. And do the other side. And back up. And again, we wanna really make sure that this core is staying engaged. Our lower back is flat against the mat and there's no arching happening. So we're not cheating it. Otherwise, we're going to have to go back and make sure that we have those kind of prerequisites set. And we'll start with just, one leg at a time and making sure we can hold that posture while we move down, and we can add more sets as we build our strength and stability and confidence in our body. One other thing we can add to this second phase, as a kind of intermediate between the second phase and the third phase when we're getting back to doing almost the full dead bug, is we have just learned, we started with the tilt and the activation. And then we had our legs raised, and then we practiced lowering with the heel and the exhale. And if this all feels great, we can progress one step further with the full extension of the leg and back up while keeping that activation. And that's gonna bring us one step closer to getting to our full dead bug. All right, so if we successfully completed those 3 kind of progression series in phase 2, while maintaining our core activation, there's no arching or cheating with our lower back, and there's no pain, then we can go ahead and progress to phase 3. All right, in phase 3, now we're going to hopefully be back to where we're executing the full dead bug. So again, exhaling and making sure that we're having that pelvic tilt and our core is fully activated. We're gonna have our legs lift up, but this time we're gonna add our arms. And so our arms are gonna come up overhead, our knees are bent at a 90 degree, And when we do the leg lower this time for the full extension, we're gonna move back the opposite arm simultaneously and then back up. So just like we were doing before, we wanna really exhale on the extension. And do the other side. We want to really make sure that it's staying activated. There's no pain, there's no pinching happening. Otherwise, we need to go back a step and make sure that those are kind of ironed out first. But we can do We can do 8 sets of those, or 8 reps rather, and 3 sets of those as we build our strength. And once you're really confident and competent with those, there's no pain just like before, then we can move on to our 4th and final stage. All right, and for our return to activity phase, our 4th and final stage, where we're really trying to add our strength and conditioning to ensure that this is not something that's going to be injured again, and we're building resistance for whatever sport that we're involved with. You will need a resistance band, or some weights to have in your hands. And so you can start with one, or you can do both. Play it by ear. You can always add the resistance, like a higher level resistance band later on. You can add more weight if you want to make it more challenging for the arms and core. So for the band, you're going to go ahead and put the band between your feet. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and get back down on the mat to be in our dead bug position. So we're making sure that this core is engaged, our pelvis is tilted to engage that core, our arms are straight up, our knees are at 90 degrees. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to exhale on the way out. Inhale on the way out. And same thing on the other side. I totally forgot. We're going to add the opposite arm, opposite leg. And same thing. And again, if you want to add one extra level to this, you can take some weights and put them in your hands. And as they move back, you're going to just see a little bit more resistance. So again, making sure that pelvis is tilted, our core is activated, and we're going to go ahead and inhale. And if you feel any kind of pinching or impingement that's happening there, you can tell that there's probably a little bit too much resistance. You should back off by either practicing the last phase steps or lowering the resistance on your band or the weights before progressing. And those are our 4 phases to help us recover from a hip impingement to properly execute the dead bug. I hope this video was informative and helpful.